And just want to welcome everyone to our virtual roundtable that we have for CCIM. This is our third week of putting this on, and we're very excited about all the positive responses we've been hearing from all the participants in the room. I certainly think on my end that it's certainly opened up my eyes quite a bit, and it made me realize that we are through Zoom and other technologies, we are much more connected than what we realize. And so I just want to thank Helen for the participation and getting on here as well. And certainly with her knowledge, expertise, and her contacts, it certainly made it better for all of us. And so, Helen, thank you for that.
Thank you for having us as well.
Yes, and so I just want to share the mission statement of CCIM, which the mission statement of CCIM is to elevate our members to the highest levels of success in the commercial real estate profession. And that's very important that we all unite together, because the more we have unity, the better off that we're all going to be. And so just also want to share with CCIM.com in regards to the resource page. And the resource page, there's multiple there's a lot of information there that you could find that's going to help you navigate yourself as we're going through these uncertain times. Such as information regarding the SBA, IRS and Treasury Department, FEMA, legislative initiative, advocacy initiatives, and guidance for owners, operators, and property managers. And so if anyone has any questions, your CCIM leaders are always available, but the CCIM.com resource page is also a wonderful resource for everybody as well. My name is Gary Martinez. I'm the SoCal Commercial Real Estate President for our chapter with a company called Asheville Associates. I'm an industrial broker. Our chapter covers all of Orange County along with Inland Empire. We've got about 150 members that we're responsible for, along with a group of sponsors that we're responsible for as well. And Helen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Helen Chong, and I am the president for the Northern California chapter for CCIM. And my company, actually, we are a company that we handle residential all the way to commercial, specifically specializing in multifamily. And we are very excited to be here to join forces with Southern California CCIM to do these weekly webinar right now.
Great, wonderful. Thank you, Helen. So in regards to our meeting for today, this is a quick agenda as to what we are doing. A couple of things and a couple of notes before we completely dive in. The past couple of weeks, I know we had everyone on video and gave everyone the ability to just chime in whenever they're available to. So what we found is that it was taking a lot of bandwidth. And so what we are doing this time, we're keeping most people as a participant, but we still would like to make this as interactive as possible. We ask that you do a couple of things. Is that we use the question and answer box it's probably on top of your screen that allows you to chime in and ask some questions. The chat room is open, so if you'd like to chat with either myself or everybody, you have the ability to do so. If you would like to chime in and talk, if we're going to ask the participants to raise your hand, we do see hands that are raised, and we'll allow you to come in, and we'll unmute you so you could go ahead and participate as well. One thing I did also today, I thought it was kind of fun, is I put together a poll, which I'm going to launch right now. And so you don't necessarily have to complete the poll right now, but at the end of our presentation, we'll be able to see our answers. And so I'm going to push launch polling. So everyone's going to see a pop-up on their screen. If you're on your device, on your phone, you probably saw it come up on your device. It's something you do not have to complete right now. If you just swipe either left or right, you'll see on the top right hand or the top of your phone, you'll see real estate poll in progress, and where you could always just push on that and go ahead and complete the poll. And so that'll be fun to kind of get a perspective and idea as to where everyone's mindset is at in regards to all this, in regards to this environment. But I thought this would be fun for us to do. So as we go through the presentation, if you just go ahead and look through the poll and go ahead and complete it, that would be wonderful. I certainly do not want to take any attention away from our presenters, because we have some really good presenters. But at the same time, if you find yourself having that time, I thought this poll would be fun for us to have some interaction with and see what everyone's feelings and responses are. So thank you. I do see a few people responding already. So thank you for your participation. And so in regards to chapter introductions, Alan, you want to go ahead and introduce your leadership team?
Sure. So most of our leadership team is actually here right now. Aziz Khatri, he is our past president for 2019. And again, I'm Helen Chong, and I'm current president for our chapter. And Tim Tran, he is the president-elect, so he'll be the president next year. And he will also be celebrating our 50th anniversary for our chapter as well. And Tim Tukalski, and he is, by trade, he is a CPA, and he's our treasurer and secretary. And Teddy Swain, he's our technology officer. But aside from 5 of us, we actually have our board of directors have a total of about 18 people right now. So it is a long list. That's why we didn't put everybody here.
Great.
And of course, without our sponsors, our chapter won't be able to do what we do. So we truly appreciate all the sponsors being so supportive and being there for us. And our platinum sponsor is Sensiba San Filippo. They are a CPA firm. And also our gold sponsor is Heritage Bank of Commerce, Crexing, Bangor, and also Chase. And of course, also we have our silver sponsors, Business Finance Capital, as well as Chicago Deferred Exchange Company.
Wonderful. In regards to SoCal CCIM, just want to give recognition also to our board members. Each of them have wonderful insight, and each of them have helped develop as to what we're doing here with our chapter. And you know, without their collective efforts, there's no way we could do what we do. And also want to recognize our sponsors: CoStar Group, AAR, Asheville Associates, Asset Preservation, Baker Law Group, Coast to Coast Escrow, Platinum Wealth Group, along with Fidelity. Just want to give recognition to our sponsors. If anyone has any questions, all of them are open for business, and they would love to field your calls and be of assistance in any way they can. We want to go ahead and support our sponsors as they are supporting us in all of our efforts here with our chapter. And so thank you for each of them. In regards to our virtual roundtable, we are, today we're doing ours. We're going to do another one next week as well, again from 8 to 9:30, so you can go ahead and just plug that into your phone. There is no cost for our CCIM members along with industry professionals. What we want to do is just try to make this as interactive as possible, share some best practices, share some technology, and I believe in information. I believe in education. I believe in relationships, and at this time, we know where the government's telling us that we need to sit in place. We wanted to at least do something where it allows our members and those in the commercial real estate profession to have a platform where we all can just continue to do exactly that, which is to share information and to continue to increase our relationships. We're also looking for sponsors. So just as you saw, sponsors are very important for all of our chapters, and we certainly need resources along with everyone else. So our sponsors start as low as $500 up to $2,500. Helen, where are your sponsorship levels at?
We have 4 different levels from $1,000 all the way to $5,000.
Great. And Helen has 250 members. We have 150. And so if you'd like to get additional exposure for your business, this is a great way to do so. So in regards to roundtable discussions, what we wanted to do, again, as we talked about before, is we want to make this as interactive as we possibly can. And so we do recognize that we don't have everyone on video, and we do have a lot of people on mute right now. So what we're going to ask is, we do want to hear from everyone. We would like everyone to chime in as much as possible. So if you have some information that you would like to share, especially if you've participated in our meetings in the past, we would love to hear from each of you to give us an update. Each of you have provided us some good insight, and we'd love to hear from each of you. And so just to kind of keep this under control, we're going to ask for everyone to raise their hand to chime in. And so I'll go ahead and start, and I'll hand it off to Helen. And again, if you have anything that you'd like to add to the conversation, we ask that you raise your hand. So in regards to my business, I'm a commercial real estate broker. I mainly focus on industrial properties. And so before all of this started, we had I had 5 escrows open, and 4 of the 5 escrows came to a screeching halt. Fortunately, we do have 2 escrows that we're able to massage a little bit, and we're able to push through, and we are projected to close 2 of those escrows this week. Another one that we are continuing to massage. It looks as if things are going through with that one. And the other 2, they were already kind of on rocky waters before all of this started. So I think with this whole, coronavirus stuff, it just put a nail in the coffin and put those, aside. And so what I'm finding is that there are businesses that are flourishing during this time. I think we all see that. And we do have quite a bit of clients that are calling us that need a building more than they need before. And so it is a good opportunity to recognize and try to understand what businesses are doing well, because there are transactions that are happening at this time. Helen, what are you seeing out there?
So since our company, we handle residential all the way to commercial, including especially multifamily. On the residential side, you'll be very surprised up here in Northern California. I'm still hearing people pulling 19 disclosure packages, and then we have multiple offers. But obviously, the offers are much more conservative than before. And on our multifamily side, on the other hand, pretty much most of our buyers are kind of on a halt right now, stopping. They want to watch the market to see how is it going, especially because of the eviction moratorium. A lot of people are really at a standstill, wondering what will happen. I think the month of April right now is a really crucial month to see if there are going to be a lot of tenants calling on not paying for rent. And also the banks, I don't even think that they know what they're doing right now, because for the mortgage forbearance, they are saying that they're deferring the mortgage payments, but at the same time, quite a few banks right now are saying that once the deferment is over, they're going to ask the landlord to pay everything all at once, which is not going to make sense for landlords. And as a matter of fact, for City of San Jose yesterday, 2 council members had made a proposal to ask for rent suspension for tenants, retroactive back to April 1st, and saying that if any landlords had received rent from these tenants who are affected by COVID-19, they have to refund all the rent back to the tenants. So it just, it's gonna be really tough. This is gonna be a tough fight. So a lot of us are sending emails to the council members who are basically saying we are voting no to this.
Interesting. George Paniawa, you presented to us a couple of weeks ago, and we'd love to hear from you and get an update in regards to what's happening in your world in the SBA.
Sure. So thank you, Gary, and good morning, everyone. So in the world right now of SBA, what I'm seeing is basically, we have certain segments of the population that are actually still real estate. That section of the population basically is the ones that are being actually are succeeding right now when it comes to business, and those are going to be like your supermarkets. It'll be your transportation companies, obviously, truckers and other industries are still very, very active. One of my clients is a larger business, and they're actually in the process of purchasing a $9.5 million property, and they're in the commercial trucking repair and maintenance space, and they're being asked to do more business than ever before. So I would say that with certain industries, they're still doing well, but at the same time, I will also say that everybody is asking for either if they're already a past client of ours, they're asking for a deferment, or if they're an existing client of mine, they are also asking for the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Agency, or they're asking for a CARES Act or an EIDL loan program, because they all need assistance. So everyone's affected. Even the strong clients that are buying property right now are taking advantage of getting the discounts that SBA is offering, as well as the state guarantee program. Everybody's taking advantage of it because, I mean, well, why not if it's there? But at the end of the day, there are certain sectors that are still buying, there are still purchasing. I have a marketing campaign set up to go after that type of clientele, because that's what pays the bills over here. But nonetheless, everyone is being affected with regards to revenues and clients coming in. So that's kind of what I'm seeing now. A lot of actual business acquisition transactions are being asked as well. Businesses are exiting the space, and businesses that are still thriving are actually looking to purchase those businesses. Sometimes they come with real estate, sometimes they do not.
Wonderful. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We hear you.
Good. Well, even though, as Helen mentioned, I'm a CPA, so this should be my absolute busiest time, working 10 hours a day, trying to get people's tax returns out. And that came to a grinding halt with everything deferred to July 15th. So I thought this was going to be my new summer, right? Or at least take a break. But I would say that, not exaggerating, 100% of my time has been spent talking to my clients about the SBA program, the PPP, trying to help them deal with this whole pandemic. I mean, I've had clients all the way from, business is just fine. Should we apply for this money even though we don't need it, to I've closed it down. I've fired all my employees, told them to go get unemployment. So we actually have a program at the firm where people can go, ask questions, get assistance, help them navigate through the whole program. Deals, like you said, even though I don't broker deals, I'm certainly on the team for those deals in progress. And I had several of them that, as Helen said, are on hold because of the moratoriums on evictions. One, I have a $16 million trailer park that the buyer just all of a sudden said, nope, not going to do that. We're going to pay you some, deposits up front, maybe $12,000 for the next month or two to keep it open, but we're not going to do anything at this point. Another one, a $27 million deal that was supposed to be, it was a commercial property that's going to been entitled for residential. The buyer has deferred that. They haven't backed out, but they've deferred it. So a lot of these deals are on hold at this point. And something that had come up just recently, we do a lot of valuation work. We have a group that does that, and now we're scratching our head trying to decide how do we value businesses at this point in time, especially if those businesses had real estate associated with them. So we're in an unknown world at this point what to do with those. So
that's for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that Tim. And let's hear from one or two more. Then we want to introduce our panelists. And so, Lisa Kim, what's going on in your world in Garden Grove? Lisa, you there? All right, we'll come back to you. Marty Lefton, what's going on in your world, Marty? All right. Well, we'll come back after our panelists. We'll have another open discussion. We'll get a chance for everyone to go ahead and chime in. So at this time, I don't see any other hands that are raised, and so just want to go ahead and get into our discussion here. We want to thank our panelists. We have 3 panelists here that are amazing, and we're very thankful that they're here with us as well. What we wanted to do is we wanted to provide everyone some insight, and we wanted to hear as to what large portfolio owners are currently doing in this marketplace. And so naturally, they have a lot of deal flow that they're actually working on, that they have a lot of tenants that they're responsible for. They have perspective as to how they see the market, whether it's a good opportunity or bad opportunity. I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves and kind of give us a little update as to what they're seeing in the market. And so why don't we start off with Mr. John Koss. You're still on mute, John. Oh, you're on your phone. Okay, we'll come back to you. If you send me a chat, John, with your phone number, I will I'll know who you are, and I'll go ahead and unmute you. Okay. Mike Kent.
Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody's doing well and learning the new norm for at least another couple of weeks. Mike Kent, I've been in the industry since college. I started as a real estate broker, so I know what you're going through and the deal flow that you were just talking about, Greg. It's downturns are here, and this is a unique one for sure. I work for a company today called Goodman. It's a global industrial REIT based in Australia. We're about $34 billion under management. Relatively new to the United States. We have assets in China, in Hong Kong, in Japan, Europe, Brazil, and the US. And our focus here in the US is large box industrial. We've gone in and bought logistics sites and developed from ground up, the majority of them. Our deal flow tends to be 6 or 7 properties a year, but they tend to be larger in nature, over 100 million, maybe up to 250, depending on. We just recently bought the old Boeing hangars in Long Beach to redevelop those. It was a $235 million asset. That we are in the position of working with the city to put a master plan on. So it's assets like that. We are in the market today. In the last 3 weeks, we're seeing everything. We have fortunate, we have a rent roll that and a customer base of our existing portfolio in the US of the Amazons, the Georgia Pacifics of the world, who are doing extremely well. Georgia Pacific, obviously, with paper products has gone from 2 shifts a day in their warehouse to 24-hour operations to restockpile the gluttons that ran out and bought all the toilet paper out in the stores. But we are, you're seeing companies like that. To one of our companies is a residential or a supplier or delivery company for residential furniture, which is obviously completely shut down. So they've got their warehouse completely shut down. So we're seeing everything from a deal flow standpoint. We are still in the market. We are finding that we're only responding to offers that we've had in the process already. We are not seeking in the next couple of weeks at least, but we're underwriting properties if we can on properties we would be interested in, but there aren't many. The issue that we're finding is providing due diligence and getting a team out to an asset is our biggest challenge. We're trying to expand out of, today we're in 2 major metros, which is Southern California and New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania markets. And we're trying to expand in Seattle and Northern California. And those 2 markets are just a challenge to get on a plane and have a due diligence team. So anything we've been looking at up there will be put on a slow pace, but we'll continue and we will see deal flow. As far as the customer base, we're seeing a small portion of our customers. We did open a retail center because of a master planned community out in Eastvale. So if you drive along the 15 freeway, you've seen our properties. There's 2 Amazon buildings right on the freeway. And then on the inner side of that, we've built a brand new retail center. We've got Costco in there, which is obviously doing extremely well. And then we opened some QSR there, and almost all of them are doing about 15% in volume, 15 to 20%. And it's QSRs. It's walk up. There's a Starbucks there which has a drive-through, but most of them are walk up restaurant, mod pizza type of deal. And they are asking us for deferred rent. Most of our customers have come to us with a deferred rent strategy as opposed to free and abated rent. So almost all of our clients have done that. We're in the process of responding back to all of them today. One of our requirements is that they will apply for the PPP program, and they're proof of that. And the larger customers that we are seeing, only a few, believe it or not, customers asking for any type of deferred rent. And those few customers were asking for financials, projections, business models, really a business plan on how they plan to recoup and survive out of this environment. So that's,
Wonderful.
yeah. We are talking to our customers every week. So we're doing a health check on our customers. We physically will not go into any property unless it's absolutely required. So we don't want to make the customers uncomfortable, but we are doing physical drive-bys to see how the operations are doing, to see if there's any issues. We do have and are considered, real estate is considered an essential requirement as well. And our team is fully engaged. I don't think I've been busier in my career. That's for sure. There's a lot of questions going around, especially from corporate and Australia. There's a lot of board meetings and making sure that everybody's providing accurate information quickly as possible about the status and health of our customers, our employees, et cetera.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike. And along for all of our participants and attendees, the question box is open. And so if you have any questions while our panelists are talking, you are welcome to chime in, and we'll go ahead and get to your questions as well. Let's take this to Neil. Neil, what are you seeing in your environment?
Everyone, I'm Neil Bawa, multifamily syndicator, about 2,000 units of both multifamily and student housing. On the multifamily side, we have properties that are between 10% and 30% non-payment of rent for April. The CEC minuses tend to be closer to the 30% non-payment, whereas the Bs tend to be closer to the 10% mark. We're talking with tenants. We're doing some of the same things that Mike mentioned. We're looking for some kind of proof that people have actually been laid off. There's no gifting of rent, but we've allowed people to use security deposits. We've allowed people to make 2 payments instead of 1. We've allowed people to redo their rent contracts in certain cases where we've basically taken this month's rent and pushed it into future months. So all of those things are being done. As far as transactions are concerned, we've pulled back from all of our transactions. Luckily, we were not hard on money at this point in time, which was a big mercy. But we pulled back from all of our transactions. We continue to watch those transactions, but it doesn't look like those transactions are proceeding. So we feel that the multifamily market is frozen, especially because of the Fannie Freddie new onerous requirements of 12 months of impounds, mortgages, taxes, insurance, and that is going to freeze the market while the market figures out what is an appropriate cap rate in this new coronavirus world. I do want to share some news. I'm a data scientist by profession. I'm out of Silicon Valley, and I believe that this freeze is going to be shorter than most people on this call believe. At this point, the U.S. has turned. Yesterday was our turning point. So the largest growth in cases, daily growth in cases, it's been growing every single day. And yesterday we had less cases. We had 30,000. The day before we had 32,000. So we've turned the corner at this point. and you will see a rapid decline in cases every single day, and you'll see that the number of new cases are going to go down. The model that appears to be the most accurate is the IHME model that we're following every single day, looking at when the chances are for the US to reopen. And at this point, initially we were projecting a reopening happening in July, and then it was June, and now it appears that the reopening of the US is actually as close as May 15th. So this freeze of uncertainty, this time of uncertainty is actually a bit shorter than what it's going to be. Obviously, when we reopen, there's always a possibility for the virus to come back, but we foresee the reopening being more like hurricane season in the US, right? When there's a hurricane in the US, you have certain cities in the US and certain states that shut down, but the rest of the US remains open for business. So we see it's similar to being that in the June and July timeframe. So I think the market will remain frozen until we answer the question of what is the basis on which we are, looking at cap rates for assets. And so I think that we'll start seeing some good guidance there as soon as the beginning of June.
Wonderful. That's good insight, Neil. John?
No audio for John.
Still not there, John? We hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm a vice president of asset management for Anchor Health Properties. I'm responsible for the Western region that extends from San Diego to Seattle, Denver, Dallas. We've got properties in Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Sacramento. I've been in commercial real estate for about 35 years, about 15 of that as an asset manager. The company I work with is called Anchor Health Properties. It's a national owner and developer of medical office buildings. 30-year-old company that owns 65 buildings and manages almost 6 million square feet with 70 employees and 15 offices. And we're also a developer. We've developed 3 million square feet and acquired 1.6 billion in property. And now, even though we've only recently expanded in the West, just 3 years ago, we are known as the largest private owner of medical office buildings in San Diego County. We're bullish on the market. The medical office building market. We're always looking for more medical office buildings to buy. We are looking to close on 3 more buildings this quarter, with many identified for the balance of the year. There's a lot of competition for medical office buildings right now. You've got everything from REITs to a lot of private investors. We have about 1 million square feet of current development projects, 1/3 of which are fee-based. So medical field is something that is still growing, if you will. We were also named the top medical office building developer in 2019 by Revista. We partner with various JV groups, joint venture groups, Carlyle Group, Morgan Stanley, Harrison Street, Chestnut Partners, and even third-party managed for others, including 2 of the largest medical REITs in the country. We're looking for about 200 million in JV acquisitions and 50 million in direct acquisitions this year. Investments under 15 million are typically funded directly with a 60 to 70% LTV percent. Investments over 15 million are typically funded with institutional JV partners with a 50 to 65% LTV. We're looking for a 10-year hold and a project return of 12% IRR in 30 identified submarkets across the United States. We prefer buildings that are 50,000 square feet and larger with a health system or a large regional clinical practice, but we'll look at others, especially if we have some scale in the market already. Basically, we like barriers to entry like CON, which is certificates of need, with a 5 per 1,000 parking. We will complete partial MOB conversions. We've been very successful in doing that recently. And we call these basically value adds, and been known to be inventive to increase parking, which is so necessary at a medical office buildings, of course. We just finished doing a $7 million parking structure addition down in San Diego, and we're actually doing parking stackers, which is mechanical stackers, up in Seattle. We do ground-up projects for ourselves and work for others as fee developers. We basically are it's kind of a unique niche of an industry. It's not quite office, it's not quite retail, and it is something that is needed. It can be oversaturated, a bit like in Phoenix. There's a little oversaturation there. Other places where it's very, very tight. San Diego market has been very good for us, and we've been able to really substantially increase our occupancy over the past years. As far as what we see it going on in the market, personally, this is just coming from the asset management point of view. We've got a number of tenants that have asked for rent relief, and we basically have a schedule that we put together. We have them fill out actually, and give us 2 years of tax returns, P&L statements, and then we make a determination whether we're going to defer rent, etc. We are seeing a lot more of that, and of course, April has been the real king of that. We basically have a lot of it's still early April, so we'll see how many actually don't pay their rent on time come the 5th and 10th of the month when the leases say the rent's due. We'll see. I believe we're going to get a lot more, and a lot more in May as well. We're kind of looking to make sure we get a certain percentage of our collections this month, realizing we'll probably get a little bit less next month. So we are really kind of working through that. We do send out something to everyone, to all our tenants about the CARES Act, the SBA lending relief, PPP program for small businesses under 500 employees. We're kind of proactively giving that to everybody, making sure that they have this. We're also looking at, us coming from the management point of view. We have had instances at the building. I know one of the questions we'll get to, so I just wait for the questions, but we have had positive people that have tested positive at our buildings, had to do terminal cleans that night and such. So we can get into that, but it is a very dynamic sector of the industry.
Interesting. Very, very good, John. Thank you for your insight there. And we do have a couple of questions, and the two questions are pretty much related. And the questions that we have is, what are your recommendations on where to source prospecting lists to contact specific business types, along with which sectors are active? And so overall, what sectors or what businesses do you see that are doing well, that are active at this time? What tenants do you have or are doing well? And what are your thoughts on those industries?
I think. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to ask who it was directed to.
To each of you.
In my mind, any space that is technology heavy is going to do well, because the tech industry appears to have adapted very quickly to working from home, and I'm seeing their stock not get hit at all. So I think that's a very active segment. On the real estate side, we are seeing public storage do well, because we've not heard any instance so far of people trying to save $70 a month in the middle of a pandemic by going out and emptying out their storage unit. It just is not something that they're interested in doing at this point in time. So we've seen public storage do quite well. And speaking for ourselves, we expect that what John is doing is going to do quite well. So after 2001, after 9/11, we saw that the next 10 years, security companies of all sorts, especially information technology companies that were involved in security, did really well. And we expect that this being a bigger black swan event than 9/11, all forms of healthcare companies, all forms of companies that are involved in medical offices are going to see an increased demand. We have to build out an infrastructure that didn't exist before, simply because we didn't feel like a pandemic could ever happen. And so we feel that the medical office sector will actually come out of this a winner, despite the rise of telemedicine.
And we also think
Mike?
industrial will fare extremely well through all of this. Logistics are a critical part of the infrastructure to supply America everything that they need. We are busier than ever on anything that we have vacant. Unfortunately, we're 95% occupied. And the few properties that we have are under redevelopment. We have seen, we just did a deal in Long Beach at the Boeing hangar, which is a 150-acre site, where we just did a deal with Mercedes-Benz to store cars for the next 3 months. Very lucrative deal just to store cars. The cars are coming in, they're manufactured, they're made, they're on boats, they're at the port. And they have to go somewhere. And if people aren't buying them at this moment, they have to store them. So there's opportunities out there for temporary storage agreements and temporary. We also talk to a lot of the facilities in specifically, again, I'll use Long Beach as a quarantine area. There's 2 buildings, existing buildings that the city and National Guard wanted to lease from us for various types of products and storage for this epidemic. So there are opportunities out there. It's just seizing them and making sure that you're communicating well to get through this temporary glitch in the marketplace. But we're very bullish on industrial and will remain there globally.
I agree with that, by the way.
John?
I think, the U.S. had a just-in-time system. We had 5 days worth of toilet paper and we had 5 days worth of hand sanitizer. And people are now beginning to realize that a just-in-time system needs more storage. And so instead of the world being a 5-day world, we might go to a world being a 15-day world. And in that instance, we just simply don't have enough industrial and logistics in the U.S. to handle that at this point in time. So there's going to be an increase in demand there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
John?
one thing you did up about car storage, we actually have Mazda using part of our parking lot in one of our buildings where we're doing a very large medical build-out, 51,000 square foot medical build-out for UC Davis. And so we have Mazda in there until we kick them out and the UC Davis TI is finished. There's going to be a lot of change, I feel. People are going to have a different outlook as far as overall real estate. I think my sector is a good one, as Neil said. I think we have a lot of bandwidth to keep moving forward. We have a number of tenants that are open. Of course, our dentists, our physical therapists, massage therapists, and stuff like that. Those and plastic surgeons, a lot of them are closed. We do have a lot of tenants that are open right now. A lot of them are under limited hours, of course, or they're taking additional steps to protect the staff members by actually screening patients before they walk into the building. But there's a need for medical services, and throughout this pandemic, it could be regarding a coronavirus. It could be regarding you're at home and your child falls down and breaks his arm. What are you going to do? You have to go to the hospital, or urgent care, etc. But so there's a lot of need, and I think we will continue to see that.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have 2 questions that came in from Greg Deal and Tim, and both of them are also related. Greg Deal asked, as working outside the office becomes more accepted and efficient, how will this affect the demand for office space? Will this have an even bigger influence than, say, the co-working space trend? So, and Tim's asking the same thing. What's the result of office in the future?
I'll jump in to start. I've got a number of property managers that report up to me, et cetera. They're all working from home right now. We have offices in the buildings, but we've taken a proactive step to have everyone work from home. I personally have been working from home since I started with this company, and so it's nothing new to me per se. I do think it's going to have an effect on the number of actually the square footage footprint of each tenant that is in an office building.
I think so. I think there's a permanent effect, and the effect may be a bit smaller than we think, simply because companies want people to come into work. There's this feeling that there's a lower level of control, but I think that some certain slice of the overall office market is gone as more and more companies, buy licenses for software like Zoom, and people become more flexible and also more comfortable with working remotely. I think that the office sector, a certain percentage of office space in the United States usage is just gone, and it's gone for the long term.
And I want to mention one thing, how this is actually affecting the residential side. Is interestingly now, like we start to hear people saying that it's more important than ever to have a designated office space in your home. So what people are looking for is a more larger space and more bedrooms nowadays.
Yep. I also wanted to, point out that from what we've seen, we've been tracking China's return to the marketplace. Their economy has reopened, the Apple stores are open, the malls are open. And so one of the interesting things that we've seen is that even though people now have no restrictions anywhere, including Wuhan today, which opened earlier today, they're still choosing not to do certain things that they could do. So certain sectors are still highly depressed. One of the big losers appears to be the energy sector. So people are basically going back to work, and they're doing, all of their work activities, they're doing their groceries, but they're not doing discretionary energy spending. So we're seeing, we believe that the oil sector in the United States, especially the shale sector, is about to implode. And any industries and geographies that are connected with that oil sector are going to see a devastating hit.
Interesting. Earl, I think that's you. Earl, you had a question. You want to go ahead and ask your question?
No, actually, I was just going to comment on what's happening in the in lending. We're a commercial real estate mortgage brokerage, and so we finance a lot of apartment buildings and industrial properties and retail and office and so on. And so I thought I'd comment on it. Is that welcome?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we are seeing some really big things happening as far as lending is concerned. Most of our clients are using mortgages in the $500,000 to $10 million range. That's where the biggest part of the bell curve is, and we're finding really big developments there, pretty much along the lines of what things were like in the recession in 2007, 2008. Now, some lenders have completely closed their doors and said, "See you later. We'll come back when this is over." Others have stayed in the market, and of course they're extremely busy, but their requirements have increased, and they've also increased rates by anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 to 3/8 of a percentage point. For certain, liquidity is a big deal now. They want to see more and more liquidity. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac wants 12 months of PITI, and some of the non-government sponsored lenders want not quite that as much, but still a whole lot more. They've also reduced loan to value and increased debt coverage ratio. And so an awful lot of clients now who were relying on certain lenders find they can't. And so we're getting calls now from multifamily tenants who say, I need to refinance, or I need to buy a property, whatever, but my regular lender is not available. And so we're having to scramble to help them to find other money. So for sure, we're funding okay. All of us at Fidelity are very, very busy right now. We're also helping clients with the PPP program and the EIDL program from SBA. So we don't fund those, but we're helping clients put their files together and get them to lenders who are actually lending. And so we don't make any money doing that, but we're there to help people who need that. So that's what's happening as far as financing of properties is concerned. There's still stuff going on, but it's really different out there, and it's difficult out there. So so that's it.
Great. Thank you, Earl. We also had a question from George to our panelists in regards to the amount of properties. Are there properties that are going to be coming back on the market that where tenants are just going to vacate And are we going to see an influx of available properties and a buying opportunity for buyers? What are your thoughts, panelists?
Tenants don't want to leave. We've had notice to vacates being taken back because tenants are afraid to leave in this scenario. So we are not seeing any decrease in occupancy in properties across the board. And actually, none of our properties have seen a decrease. We've seen some increase. So we've seen some tenants that were, on the fence, just get in, they want shelter. So I don't think occupancy is a factor. I think that delinquency and payment of rent is the big factor. I absolutely believe that in Q3 of this year, we will see a significant portion of multifamily properties come to market, and that will force up the cap rates. Why? You're looking at what the lenders are doing. You just heard a very crystal clear description of what is happening to the commercial lending space. At this point, it's frozen. And even when it comes back, people still won't know how to value those properties. So let's say that the economy restarts in May and in June, things kind of look normal. There's still going to be this big question on should we be evaluating properties at the same cap rates that we did pre-crisis. So as a result, we expect that in Q3 and Q4 of this year, significant multifamily properties will come to market. And these are the properties that were already exhibiting weakness before coronavirus. So they were in trouble pre-corona, and the coronavirus made it worse. The properties that are well capitalized, like our properties are well capitalized, we can pay our rent, our mortgages for a year, even without tenants. Nothing's going to happen. We're just going to hold our way through. Nobody wants to sell a property at this time anyway. So they're going to be the sort of properties that do not have extensions on their bridge loans. They're going to be on the sort of properties that have no choice but to come to the market because their lender's saying, no, you need to sell this now. And so we will see a bunch of deals, I believe, in the multifamily space in Q3 and Q4. I'm not so sure about single family because it seems like that market is performing better at this point than the multifamily market is from a lending perspective.
Just from what I'm seeing, we had a number of deals that were in the works, lease deals for new tenants, and there was a lot of hurry up in the last couple weeks. I'm seeing a big slowdown for new deals. I think a little bit to what Neil's saying, that there's going to be a real slowdown come in April and May of new deals as tenants kind of hunkering down. Do they really need to expand right now? Do they really need to relocate right now? And so again, a lot of people were saying, hey, that's a good deal, but it's on hold. So we're going to see a lot of that, I think. And as far as withstanding tenants, I don't see tenants leaving. I see some tenants that were having trouble paying their rent. They're kind of using this as, oh, wow, now I have a legitimate excuse why I'm not paying my rent, as opposed to just kind of pocketing the money. So we're going to see a lot more of that as well.
I see that there's a question from Tim Tukalski regarding, are there any opportunities for repurposing office space? This is also actually one of my questions as well, especially knowing that hospitality is getting a huge hit, and we're expecting probably going to be a lot of hotels going to come online and selling in deep discount. Will there be an opportunity for like hotels and office space to be converted into more like a medical office building?
I think there's room for office buildings to be converted to medical office building, but hotels don't appear to be, ideally suited for conversion to medical office buildings. That's my feeling. That it's going to cost a lot of money to convert a hotel into a medical office building. John?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Neil. I think that's 100% right. We also are going to see a lot of people that are going to want to do conversions, but there's a lot to a medical office building that's not in a regular office building, as far as connections, as far as just the volume of air that's needed, the janitorial services. There's a lot to a medical office building.
Yeah, this is easier said than done. I mean, to be honest, this sort of conversion is not easy at all. Well,
yeah, we do it, but it's one of those things that you really have to be all in.
We had a board meeting yesterday, and one of our board members had a pretty good question that made me really think, and it's related to automation. And so, I mean, automation is something that's been kind of been transpiring for a while, and especially in the logistics world and in restaurants. And so, do you think automation is going to continue to grow? I mean, is it something that we're going to see a bigger, more automation coming to the market space for our tenants?
I'm part of a food service family. I'm not invested with them directly, but I get to listen to them for the last 10 or 15 years, and they've been arguing about this. So they own large numbers of Burger Kings and Taco Bells, and their fundamental belief is that while the Burger King corporate and Taco Bell corporate have worked very hard on automation, food service automation is very difficult to do. But I think on the logistics side, we are definitely going to see large expenditure spent on automation, simply because we have use cases of success, especially Amazon being extraordinarily successful with automation. And I think that that's going to roll out across the industry. Food service automation currently has no use cases that are successful use cases. A McDonald's has 15,000 restaurants, and they're all manual. And from what I've seen, the cost of automation on the food service side is very high.
And there's a lot more efficiencies even in the logistics sides coming. I mean, Amazon receives a lot of attention from their Kiva system, their old Kiva system, and how they're doing robotics for their pick facilities. But we have a facility that houses Amazon or Apple computer and products, and the technology in that center is just staggering. It's a Rubik's Cube where there is not a person within 100 feet of the facility, and it can, through these automation robots, that it grabs a charger and sends it down to a box to be wrapped by an employee down the line. It's absolutely amazing to watch something of that facility and that scale. It's a 1 million square foot facility outside of New York, and the volume that they do. Unfortunately, in this environment, Apple's stores are closed. Most of the telephone stores are closed. So the volume has gone down about 28% in the last month. So they're seeing a decrease given the coronavirus, but automation is the volume that comes out of that facility to service the New York Metro is amazing. So it will continue, and it will continue throughout the supply chain as well. And I think you'll see it even dovetailing into the likes of Costco's, right? You'll see them figuring out how to supply the stores with automation eventually.
Right. We do have quite a bit of brokers, commercial real estate brokers, that are on the line. I'm sure, as each of you stated, I mean, each of you sound as if you are either bullish on the market or you're holding off right now, but at some point in time, you're actively going to be looking for properties. If you are looking for properties, how can a broker submit you a property that may be interesting for your portfolio?
So we have a whole investment division within our company. It's mainly based on the East Coast, but we are very active in the West. So I would be happy to forward any brokers' listings to our investment group as far as medical or buildings that are part medical and can be fully converted by us. So I would be a conduit, sure. But if there's another way that we could kind of set something up, I could have the brokers to send it directly.
And same with us. So, I mean, I will say the looking at new opportunities is there, making offers. If it is an opportunity that we would be interested in, we would definitely make an offer in this environment. The problem is to put it under contract with, as I mentioned, due diligence and get teams out there and commit to a schedule is almost impossible, not knowing if cities are open, et cetera, and that you can do it. But we are absolutely focusing in on future opportunities. We don't see a huge correction in industrial, to be quite honest with you. If it's a well-positioned industrial, and we don't see that there'll be much movement in our sector from either rents or pricing standpoint. So we're not seeing the wave towards the end of this year on what Neil was talking about in multifamily and residential aspect of it. But we're also seeing that, you know, in this current environment, you're seeing a lot of people having a slow build. We have 4 properties under development in various stages, and those properties we're having to extend it 30, 45 days longer of a build time than we anticipated. And those cause delays in delivery, which slows down demand or slows down supply. So therefore, we're seeing a little bit of that, but it's not really impacting it. So any vacancies that are and may occur in the industrial segment from our standpoint, we're seeing the supply chain or the build side of it slow down as well. So there'll be less deliveries, kind of mirroring that same footprints.
And just one more thing, just in case a broker does have a medical building that they would like us to look at, I mean, nationwide, my email address is jkoss, that's K-O-S-S, at anchorhealthproperties.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Neil. And Neil, can you answer Aziz's question in regards to hotel to residential co-living spaces? Do we see hotels being converted into residential assisted living or something in that nature?
I think understand this, that the assisted living market is going to hurt until a vaccine is found. So while that's a very strong market and has all forms of demographics in its favor, would you put your grandma there with 100 other people that are over the age of 75 with the virus circulating in the halls? So we've seen, so the stock market, in terms of REITs, you know, it's assisted living and senior housing that has taken the biggest hit. So right now, I don't think you can fund such a conversion. You cannot find a lender in the US that's going to give you the money to do that until a vaccine is found. The moment a vaccine is found and the older people get vaccinated, I think, you know, this concept becomes doable. But I'm not very bullish on a vaccine being found in less than 6 months and being actually administered to people in less than 6 months. So your short-term opportunity will come of buying hotels, but you'll have to sit on it for a while if you want to convert it into senior housing living. Hotels can be converted to senior housing easier than they can be converted to medical offices. And there are a number of instances where that type of conversion has been looked at. So I think that there's opportunity there, but you're going to have to be very patient because the senior housing space takes a big hit, and it takes a longer hit than hotels do, because over the next month or two, as we reopen our economy, the volume will come back into hotels, but I don't expect it to come back into senior living very easily. I expect that people will be paranoid for much longer, and they should be paranoid because the risk level of going back into a senior level living facility 30 to 60 days from now is much higher than the risk level of going back to a hotel. So I think that there's a lag there, and it's a very significant lag. Possibility of hotels being converted into multifamily, sure, there's already been some move to do these micro units, sort of multifamily, and a hotel is a micro unit, so it's about 250 to 300 square foot units, so there's the possibility of that happening. The question will be, will lenders be willing to fund that kind of activity? That's the big X factor that we see in the marketplace today. What are the lenders going to lend in the Q3, Q4 timeframe is the big X factor. But there's going to be plenty of supply of hotels to do all kinds of things.
Hey, Gary.
And George, I see your comment. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, so I will say that, you know, everything is definitely remains to be seen on what lenders will do. It does go back to Neil's question about, or a comment about risk, you know, risk-based lending. I will say, though, that historically SBA has been very good on the senior housing type of businesses, and lenders, I think, will take on the SBA loans a lot more than ever before moving forward, because with SBA lending, specifically 504, there is a 50% exposure to the lender, and they're in first trustee position at 100% recoupability on anything that needs to be liquidated. So between the 50%, their exposure, they'll always recoup that on a sale. I would assume at least in Southern California. Other states may not fare so well, but Southern California as a whole, you will always at least collect the 50%. I would defer to brokers on that. But if a individual who owns this type of business wants to convert a small hotel into senior housing of some sort, they will come to SBA 504 program. The client will come in with 10 to 20% down payment maximum. The lender will only lend 50%. The SBA will lend the 40% typically. And now you have a lender who, again, has only 50% risk into the transaction with 100% recoupability. And I think that's where perhaps there may be an increase in that space because of the just acceptability of the risk due to the 504 program, taking some on some of that liability. Again, it remains to be seen on what's going to happen with that, but I can foresee these larger, businesses that are in that space already taking this time to take advantage of that segment to get into some maybe more or less expensive property and do the conversion with lenders who are willing to do that. They're probably going to be higher rates. It's not going to be the lowest rate environment with that asset type, but with that 50% risk, I mean, I think it might actually happen.
Great. Thank you, George. And so I'm just looking at the clock here, and I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. And so I do want to ask the panelists one last question, if that's okay. What's something positive that either your company or you have developed over the past few weeks here that we've been, per se on lockdown? And so, John.
So my company is trying to work with hospitals to do temporary ICU modular units. This would be things that modular units that would be put into like a hospital parking lot for overflow. So we've actually rolled out a whole program just in the past week, actually, to do this. And I've been in contact with several hospitals who love the idea. They just don't have the need at the minute. So we're kind of working on this and hopefully to supply and fill a need that we feel will be out there. And it's not really that we're going to make a lot of money on it, but it's kind of more just to keep our name in front of hospitals.
Great. Mike?
I don't know that we've come up with any secret sauce, but I will tell you that it was a real test on our contingency plan. How adaptive are we? How adaptive are our staff to accommodate and still operate in a full-scale basis? So I will say the staff has been resilient. Our industry as a whole has been resilient. And, it tells you how well your infrastructure and technology is, your policies and procedures, your customer base communications. It's really been rewarding in a lot of respects, to be quite honest with you, to see how people have adapted and responded so positive.
Wonderful. Neil?
In our case, I'm going to give you something different. We are starting to pioneer Zoom break room parties in our company where we have 25 employees, because that's what Zoom allows in terms of keeping 25 cameras on at the same time. And so our HR staff has been organizing these parties where we play all sorts of games and we do all kinds of silly things. And the amount of laughter that comes out of these events has been absolutely astonishing and motivating to our employees. We've had great feedback from people feeling that they don't feel like they're cooped up because they're being part of these Zoom break room parties. And we're more and more beginning to see ideas on the web from other people about how to make these parties more fun. And we're stealing and adopting every one of those ideas. And it has been an absolutely fabulous thing to do.
That's funny you
Wonderful.
said that, because I think for me, I used to attend some networking events, but usually I limit my working events during the office hour. And now I feel like I'm able to go to different happy hours through Zoom. And the other day we had somebody playing a DJ so that everybody was partying in a Zoom room too. So that was pretty fun.
Wonderful. Lisa Kim, just wanted to call on you. What's happening in Garden Grove? You have a lot of good insight as well.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Kim, I'm the Assistant City Manager and the Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Garden Grove. I love these conversations with the experts who provide such a wealth of knowledge in the real estate community. It gives me an opportunity to glean from the private sector of how we can do our job better in the public sector. And for the City of Garden Grove, I know I spoke previously, we are gearing up, we're retooling our SBA program for our small business community. We're gonna ramp it up to provide for between a $5,000 and a $50,000 grant for small businesses that are unable to tap into the PPP or the EIDL loan. So we'll be gearing up for that backup plan. We'll be bringing this program before our City Council next Tuesday. Alongside, we are bringing forward a resiliency plan about actions that we have taken so far and where we're headed and some of our business tools and resources. I was smiling a bit when the conversation about conversion of hotels shifting to either senior or office or MOBs, I was about to freak out a bit. The reason being is we're a mile from Disneyland and we have 3,000 rooms in all of our hotels, which is the number one revenue source for the City of Garden Grove, is currently impacted. And so we, prior to the COVID-19 impact, we had $1 billion of hotel development in our pipeline. We anticipate to be bullish in this climate. You know, the world will shift to some level of normalcy over the next 6 to 18 months, and we will be part of that transition. For us, again, I appreciate the conversation about automation. We are probably government trailed behind the private sector in really being streamlined and advancing in technology. I'm using this time to really shift our public service counter, which is for all the real estate community who do TIs, ground up development, and real estate redevelopment. You come through City Hall. We're shifting to a virtual platform whereby plans can be submitted online. There are some agencies that are light years ahead of us, and we're coming up to speed. I don't envision life turning completely back to normal with the public service counter, but I want to make sure that our clients and our customers and our constituents have the option to still do business virtually. So that's what we're shifting to. I enjoy these conversations, and I thank Gary and the panelists for all the great information that you shared. Appreciate it.
Hey, Lisa, do you have any influence in Sacramento for DMV?
I need help with you. But thank you again.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you, Lisa. Marty, I know you had something to chime in on. Why don't we hear from you, Marty?
Can you hear me this time?
We hear you loud and clear. Perfect.
Sorry for the communication challenge earlier. I was on the phone, and I guess that doesn't work as well. But yeah, regarding the lending, and I think Earl mentioned quite a few things earlier, there are some weird ancillary things happening that I haven't heard, which is some of the lenders that do both investment and SBA, they're now going to be impacted for a while due to the PPP programs and the EIDL programs. And so we all just got to be patient that deals that we have in escrow will probably get, delayed a little bit because they're overwhelmed. And those programs in effect are just a way for them to put insurance on some of their existing deals. And so they may not make much money on those deals, but it's certainly a smart move to help their clients get those done. The other thing I'm seeing with the lenders is they're definitely liking the medical office world far better than almost anything else. Then, John, I thought you'd appreciate that. Then the apartments, they're much more willing to look at, but when we're going to the non-Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac sources, they're going to, again, want to know how many of the clients or the tenants are paying rent still. And then they're going to decide, okay, how much of a reserve account do we need just so they're comfortable doing the deals. The little strip centers are probably the least loved at the moment. And it's hard to argue with that. One thing I will say is I think they're getting over shock just like everybody else right now. And they're trying to figure out what's the world going to look like. And as we listen to a lot of the comments today and Neil's comments with how soon things will get back to normal, I think we're closer than we've been for a while on the normalcy. I think as we start to get creative and maybe allowing some of the healthier folks at less risk maybe to move around in the economy, then this will buy us some time and get us out of this much better. But there's still the retail sector, you know, with the big boxes like Macy's, Kohl's, et cetera. I don't know if they'll survive this. And I haven't heard much on the whole opportunity zone world being brought up, because I would sense those may struggle because there may not be as many capital gains to pull from. That's about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. Helen?
Yeah, actually, Marty, you touched on that, and that was going to be one of my questions, that we heard from a lot of different sectors today, but we haven't heard anything regarding retail. I'm wondering if there's any retail broker on this call can make some comments about what you think about what's going on, especially with the smaller strip centers, with a lot of small business owners who might be applying for PPP, but at the same time, they're still struggling. So if anyone who is in retail, would you mind to give some of your comments about that? Is there one hand raised? Aziz.
I can give a little insight from the center that we own. We own one center. It's a relatively large center that's under development right now. I mean, we are seeing some stress. I think the smaller strip centers will suffer because of the customer strength. A lot of them are relatively small mom and pops that live paycheck to paycheck, and I think that will have some issues. I think from this epidemic as well, you're going to see people wanting to get out a little bit more. So you're going to see retail continue to evolve to a more entertainment focus, to more food focus. I think there will be a lot of distress, and I'm on the phone and we'll be joining a call with our brokers every week. And we talk about the market and conditions. I think where you'll see some stress is in the gym market. People aren't going to go back to their gyms relatively quick. And a lot of those are heavily leveraged. There's a lot of the chains that are heavily leveraged. So it'll be depending on each of those. There will be some retailers that, in my personal opinion, won't make it. And they're pretty obvious, and they've been pretty obvious for 20 years, that they're not willing to adapt to this market and to what consumers are looking for. This may end those, and it won't be because of the coronavirus. It's basically their business model. So you're going to see adaptive retail continue. You're going to see repurposing and more experiential retail, as the ICSC group always refers to. It's more about the experience. People want to go out and cross-sell as they're entertained and have dining experiences, et cetera. So I think that will foster a lot more of the neighborhood shopping centers. You'll see a lot more remodeling and repurposing of the centers, where people, I think, will reinvest to get their centers repositioned.
That's great. And I know Aziz is our past president, and he's also a retail broker. Aziz?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mike in general. I just want to talk about in the immediate short term what I have seen with my clients. I sent an email to landlords and tenants, separate ones, what are their options in terms of rent reductions and those kind of things. So one of my tenants I called, I represent the landlord also there, and because I had talked to the landlord first and then contacted the tenant, and she said that landlord took an effort and called her and told her he's going to skip 3 months rent and she can pay the next 6 months, amortize over 6 months, whatever is convenient for her, because he realizes that it's really tough for landlord. If the tenant if he insists on paying or something, they can close the shop and leave, and they will have a high vacancy, especially on that, like Mike was saying about smaller strip centers. So that's what most of my clients are doing. They're just talking to each other, communicating, And that's what I sent them in my letter, to communicate with each other. That's the only way to do it. You can't just stop paying rent. And with my experience so far, it's been working well.
That's great. I think you brought up a really good point in terms of like how landlord and tenants need to work together. And I truly believe that a lot of landlords out there, they want to help, and because if they don't help the tenants, they're not going to survive either. In which I come back to the proposal that was just being offered by this City of San Jose council members to ask landlords, residential landlords, to refund all the rent payment back to any tenants who might be suffering from COVID-19, which to me, I think sometimes we need to look at this as a pandemic that is affecting both tenants and landlords, and nobody was trying to really, shouldn't be taking advantage of each other at this time. So if you see any kind of laws, again, lawmakers right now they're not really sure what to do. So if you see any laws that is not unfair, please do speak up, because this is a time that we really need to stand up and help each other out.
Yeah, this is Aziz again. And my recommendation to landlords, I also told them the same thing, in like communicating with the tenants. Similarly, communicate with your lenders. Don't stop making the mortgage payments. Talk to them, tell them the situations, and then talk to them, basically, communication.
I will say that I work on for BOMA, or I'm on the board for BOMA Governmental Affairs as well. And we sent to the Orange County Board of Supervisors a request for tax extension for the landlords, and or to eliminate any tax penalties if somebody wasn't able, due to the fact that there are a lot of restrictions on rent relief from the customers. We've sent a notice to basically plead to say that please extend that for 90 days. The payments, if there is a landlord in distress, we've already paid our tax bill, so that's good news for the county. But also, if there's any fines, that they waive those up until September 15. So I'm sure CCIM and ICSC and all the major organizations are working on behalf of the ownership to accommodate and have some participation and some relief as well.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at the time here, and I want to be sensitive to everyone's time, and just want to go ahead and thank each of our panelists. I thought this was a wonderful, wonderful discussion with John, Mike, and Neil, and I truly appreciate each of your time and your insight here. I know it's not easy to always jump on here, but I do really appreciate each of you coming on and giving us this information. And so with that, I want to go ahead and pretty much close out the meeting, and I got a few things we want to highlight over here. Helen, you have an event coming up. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, actually on April 14th, Northern California chapter CCIM, we are holding a roundtable as well, but this is specifically regarding the impact on the commercial lending side. And also we will have our CPA, Tim Tokowski, to be on the call as well to talk about what kind of tax implication could be we might have during this time. So it's going to be on April 14th, and feel free to contact me. My email address is Helen, HELEN @halengroup.com. I will put it on my on the chat box so that everybody can have my email address.
Wonderful, thank you. In regards to SoCal CCIM, we got a couple of events that are coming up. Today we have a workshop, prospecting for dollars. We did have a question coming up earlier that was posed earlier as to how do you prospect during this time. So today at 2 o'clock, we're going to have AIR along with Prospect Now talk a little bit more about their platform and how to contact property owners, tenants, and what are the right things to say at this time. Along with Deals and Drinks, this is something that we're doing for our brokers, and we recognize that we still have to market properties. We got property owners that are still asking us what we're doing for marketing. And so what we're doing is from 4 to 5:30 on April 16th and April 30th. This is going to be an opportunity, the platform for brokers to highlight their listings. So if you have a listing that you would like to highlight, send us over information, and look out for an email from Mimi, and we want to highlight your properties, along with a lunch and learn on April 23rd, where we're calling it Past President Roll Call, where we're bringing in the past presidents of SoCal CCIM to talk about their experience and share some knowledge with us as well. If you're interested in any of this, go to socalccim.com. Also want to roll this out as well, is our chapter has a reciprocal chapter membership. So if you are a member of NorCal CCIM, San Diego, LA, or any other chapter, we want to offer everyone a reciprocal membership into our chapter for only $25. And so a lot of stuff that we do, you'll be able to participate in free events, discounted events, and be able to network with us in SoCal CCIM a little bit further. And when all this clears up, we'd love to get a chance to meet everybody at the same time. So if you have an interest in that, again, go to SoCal CCIM. And again, Helen, just wanted to thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And there's no way we could do all of this with the success that you bring to the table. So thank you so much, Helen.
Thank you so much. And I just want to mention that we do have our reciprocal membership as well for Northern California chapter. Definitely welcome any members to come and join us for our upcoming events.
Wonderful. And I saw this post on Instagram and the chat. If you would type in the word yes, if you agree with this, if you agree with the statement, I'm on my way to success. Type yes if you agree. And so with that, we have our poll. Let me share our poll really quick. And if you haven't done it yet, you could go ahead and complete it. But I'm going to go ahead and open it up to everyone so everyone can see the polling numbers. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're going to end polling. And you can see the results right there.
Not sure if we can see it actually.
No, we can't see
You
it.
cannot see it? Oh, okay, here we go. How about that?
Yeah.
Nice.
There we go. Interesting. And so
Will you be able to share this
have-
full result to everybody in the email?
yes, I'm going to see how to do that. I'm still learning how to navigate my way through this, but at the very least, this is being recorded, and so if you registered, you will get an email with this recording, which you should get the poll results as well. And so with that, I'd just like to close out the meeting. Again, thank you so much to each of our presenters, John, Mike, and Neil. Thank you so much for that. And so there's no way we could do what we do without each of you. So again, thank you so much. Everyone have a fantastic day. We'll see everyone next week. And Helen, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.